The weekly registration numbers of insurance registrations in China just arrived, and we can see that Tesla is doing fairly good now, 11,700. NIO is doing okay. I wouldn't say this is great now. This 3,400 would be great number, let's say last year. This year, with higher expectations, I think this is not the bare minimum, but almost the bare minimum, I would say. But it's still okay, you know. If you look at the actual run rate, I think we are now around, let's see, so I calculated this before. You can see 3,400 this week, 3,500 last week, and then 6,700 on the week ending May and early June. 2 of those days were in June, so let's say, although it looks like it was the holidays, but let's say that they did some overtime. So let's assume that around 1,000 to 1,200 of these 6,700 came actually in June. So if you add 1,200 from the last week of May and first week of June, then 3,500, 3,400, you'll get 8,500. And this number 36,000 is actually the number of that they delivered in May and in April. And if you add to that the 8,500 plus another 8,500, that would give us this number, which would be 53,164. Let's say 53,000 cars for the entire Q2. Now that number is actually a bit lower than the guidance they gave just a couple of weeks ago on the Q1 earnings report. You can see on the outlook here they say that they're expecting deliveries for Q2 to be around 54 to 56,000 cars. With the number that just came in for this past week, that makes it a bit, you know, more difficult to reach that goal of 54,000. Although you would say that, you know, according to my estimations, we should be at least just below the, you know, guidance, like 53,000, and they guided at the low end to 54. So it's nothing big, you know, it's just 1,000. And to be honest, I think that, you know, if you follow in NIO, you know that, you know, if you look at, for example, May, so you can see that 6,700 last week of May. And then if you look at the first week of May, roughly 3,600 and 4,400. So there's usually with NIO, and again, the same kind of trend before. You can see in April, last week of April, roughly 5,000. First week of April, roughly 3,500. So they seem, yeah, there's a clear trend over the past 2 years, 3 years, that they are much stronger on the last week or the last 2 weeks of the month. So if the first 2 weeks are 8,500, there's possibility that they could do like 10, 11,000 deliveries if they do the usual, you know, a bit more hours, a bit more shifts, and, you know, everyone does their best. Then I think they can do 10, 11,000. And if they do that, they will definitely go above 50, 54, 55,000. So no, I'm not too worried about my numbers. You know, if you look at my estimations I did a couple of weeks ago, maybe a bit optimistic at 58, but even that is possible. But I would say, you know, I'm counting at the minimum 53, but most likely 55. So I would say, yeah, 55 is possible. So nothing wrong there. You can see that the lithium carbonate price is again going down. Now we are below 100,000 again, which is very good. You know that, you know, the price peaked in 2021 and 2022. So this will definitely continue to help margins. And one thing to remember as well with these prices, it's not like, you know, NIO and all the car companies are depending on daily prices. So they do deals, contracts, and if you're unlucky and you, let's say, made a big deal, let's say somewhere around this peak, now those deals are probably gonna run out at this time. So if you're gonna do more deals from now on, or if you have done it for the past 6 months, that's gonna affect your margins. Whereas if there's a company that was unlucky and had contracts, it's essentially the same as your, you know, power plan. You know, if you pay electricity bills, if you sign a 2-year contract at the peaks, now you would still be in trouble. But the moment that 2-year contract goes out, you're gonna be in a good shape the same way, because the price has gone down so sharply. But a company that maybe did a 3-month contract, let's say if you're one of those guys that made a 3-month contract, okay, then every time the price went down, you also took advantage of it. So it's difficult to know, you know, the nuances, how NIO's contract are, you know, are they, you know, is everything on one big contract, or have they divided it in many smaller ones, which is probably most likely. But the good news is that the lithium carbonate price still continues to go down, and there was a slight uptrend, you know, a couple of months ago, but you can see that we are now even going further down. So that's very good for the margins going onwards. We can also see that the Chinese economy is set for rebound and recovery in Q2, and I think, you know, the consumer in China is getting more stronger. So I don't have any, you know, the underlying demand is gonna be increasing. In addition to that, it makes sense to have electric cars. And China is, you know, subsidizing electric cars because they want to have clean cities. If you remember back in the Olympics of 2008, the artificial sun that the Chinese government built in Beijing because of the Olympics, because there was so much smog, so they had to basically have artificial sun. Now, you know, that's kind of problems is the underlying reason why the Chinese consumer wants to buy electric cars. They want clean air in the city, and the only way to do that is essentially electric cars. But yeah, so I'm not too worried at all with NIO. I think this looks good. The valuation is insanely low. The company now sits around $9 billion US. If we go to this sheet here, we can see that my revenue for next quarter is around $2.3 billion US. That's a run rate of just 10 billion. And my revenue for Q4 is, let's say, 3.8 billion. We take it down to 3 billion even. At 3 billion, the revenue for NIO is, you know, at a run rate of 12 billion US dollar. But by that time, if the stock price is still at these levels, NIO's price to sales ratio is gonna be less than 1. So yeah, I think this company is by no means overvalued. The only important thing at this point, in my opinion, is, you know, how much net loss they are gonna make. If we see this kind of projections, the yellow numbers, you know, going from 700 million net loss in the past couple of quarters, and if we see them, you know, cut that down to 500, 400, 300 soon, that's not gonna be a problem at all. If they continue, and then, you know, next year maybe just make break even, then these prices are way too low for this company at this kind of, you know, phase of the development. So yeah, I think, you know, it's very, I'm not worried at all. This is a good weekly update for NIO. It's a bit on the low end, sure, nothing, you know, this is not making me to fully buy into the bull case on a weekly basis, but again, that changes every week, and you can see this is the weekly trend, you know, over the past 7 weeks. NIO is in the green, LiAuto is the gray, and Xpeng is the blue. And if you, for example, if you remove these past 2 weeks, NIO's trends would be much higher up, as you could see my update for 2 weeks ago. So yeah, these things are, you know, changing weekly, and, you know, if you're investing in NIO and these kind of companies, you're not, you know, depending on weekly deliveries more than just to, you know, check that number and see how things are going. But the big picture, you know, the big picture is what you see here. Look at this, like, you know, the green bars are 2023, the blue bars are 2024, and we have this year's numbers until May, and they look much better. In fact, we are roughly 50% higher deliveries right now compared to last year as of latest May. So with the numbers coming in June, and you can see last year's June was actually the best month. So yeah, I think, you know, they had some pent up demand last year in June because of the very bad numbers from April, May. And sorry, I said it's the July number that was really good. But yeah, so we're gonna even beat the June number, which was also fairly okay last year. So yeah, we're gonna definitely be more than 50% ahead of last year's same time by end of June. And if you tell me that 50% increase in sales output every year for the coming 3-4 years, I'm very happy with NIO. So that's gonna do it for today. See you in the next one. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.